What's going on, YouTube? This is Army Guy. I'm back. So basically, let me start with me. I know I've been on YouTube before, and a lot of guys used to watch my channel. And back then, things weren't the same as they are now. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with where I came from. Basically, I started back in the 90s. Well, actually, back in the 80s. Uh, I started 10 years in the Army. At that time, it was 64 Charlie. Now it's like 88 Mike. Um, but my actual MOS in the Army was 76 Papa 10, which they changed to 92 Yankee or something like that. But what ended up happening was when I went to unit, I didn't end up doing the 76 Papa 10, which is quartermaster. It's actually 92 Yankee now, like I said, but I ended up doing other things such as 64 Charlie, which was five and a halves, five tons, deuce and a halves, 10 tons, over and under sticks. So that's where I actually started. So if you look back that far, we're talking about 1984 is when I went in, so about 1985. So I've been driving that long, and I've done local, I've done long distance, I've done OTR, which is long distance. I've done owner operator. I've worked for several local companies because after 5 years you get burnt out, so you end up going local and then coming back to OTR. I prefer OTR. Um, I've traveled a lot. I've been to every state. Um, I've pretty much seen a lot. Carnage. I've seen that. I've seen how the industry started. I've seen how the industry changed. Uh, how it is now. Um, just to give you a little side note, I started back when the Flying J was separate from the pilot. The pilot was one truck stop and Flying J was another. We used to call it the Flying Hook. These are the days of map books. You didn't have GPS, CB radios, which I suggest everyone should have. They'll say it's a distraction, and it's not. If you don't have a CB radio, you're riding blind. I can't preach that enough. I started when the load boards were inside the truck stops. You didn't go on DAT, or they didn't have their own website. The truck stops where you see the shower board at, that used to be the load board. And guys would come in with their tablet and paper and pencils, and they'd write down the load, and then they'd have to get on a regular phone, not really a cell phone, and call that broker and see what the load paid. Um, Back then, Flying J only took com data, but Flying J and Pilot merged. Um, and Loves was, I would say Loves was kind of in existence, but it wasn't really like it is now. The TA, they're starting to come up, but they're charging for parking. But that's a little bit about me. As we go forward and as I do videos, I'll explain more. If you have questions and answers, I'll be looking at the comments, and I will basically respond to the comments and give you the answers that you're looking for. Or if you're new in trucking, because like I said, I've been doing it about 40 years, coming up on 40. But if you're new to trucking, you can always turn to this channel. I'm going to try to give you the best answers. I'm not going to sugarcoat nothing. I'm going to be straightforward with you. If you ask me about what's the best company to go to, um, to start out, I will tell you that. And I will tell you what's the worst companies to go to, but I won't tell you on here. I'll tell you through an email, if that's all right with you. So according to an article in Freight Waves, there was the driver that was involved in the 10 fatal Alabama crash is back in business and still crashing. They're stating that 3 years after Highway Inferno killed 8 girls on their way home, the truck driver involved got a federal trucking authority and went back to work, and nobody stopped him. This was back on June 19th in 2021 at about 2:21 in the afternoon or p.m. A Tallapsoose County girls' ranch van carrying 8 children ages 4 to 17 returned from a truck vacation was struck by an automobile hauler. Uh, the truck on Interstate 65 near Greensville, Alabama, struck against by a second truck and pushed into the medium and then consumed by fire. In other words, there were girls on this truck that was like between the ages of what, 4 and 17, and the guy struck them with a call hauler, or what we know as a parking lot. I'm also give you trucking terminology on here. You need to understand that we have auto haulers, they call them, but they're actually, we call them parking lot in the industry, and that's what we use on the CB. 42 is Roger and 10-4 is Roger. But anyway, let's continue. So it was consumed by fire. So the sequence was straightforward. A Hanson and Atkins auto transport Volvo tractor traveling approximately 51 miles per hour in wet conditions plowed into stop traffic on a bridge. Seconds later, an Asmat Express freight liner driven by 41-year-old Mamui Ayan Takulu slammed into the pileup at highway speeds. Now think about that. This guy is driving a semi truck and he's not even paying attention. And if he was paying attention, he would have seen that traffic was stopped because we sit up high. And that's why we sit up high. When they tell you to get the big picture, that's what they mean, get the big picture. In other words, you should be looking miles down the road to be able to take corrective action behind the wheel of a semi. A lot of guys don't. A lot of guys are distracted by doing other things, such as being on their phone, or I've seen guys with their foot up on the dash, reading a book, looking at their computer with their cruise control on, and they're figuring that because the truck is governed at a certain speed, they can't get into an accident. Well, they're wrong. And I'm telling you from experience, because situational awareness and your situation is constantly going to change behind the wheel of a semi, because you're in a big vehicle, 80 feet of vehicle, and when you're rolling down the highway like that at highway speeds, whether it be 55, 68, 51, or whatever, you always have to keep your head on a swivel. You always have to be aware. That's why you see these guys crashing, because they're tailgating or they get out in the lane and they want to maintain the same speed. Why? I don't know, because we call the left lane in the old days the get gone lane. The get gone lane means when you get out there, get gone. Not hang out on another side of another truck or semi or vehicle, just sitting there lingering. If you can't pass within a 5-minute window, or if you know you have the speed to be able to pass, you need to pass. Okay? So basically, it goes on to say, seconds later, the Asmat Express Freightliner, driven by 41-year-old, we're not going to try that name again, slammed into the pileup at highway speeds, pushing the children's van into the medium, where ruptured fuel tanks ignited. 10 people died in the crash. What followed in the crash was a lesson in how American institutions protect themselves first. The case is probably one you've never heard of. I'm the only one I'm aware of to cover this story. Every single year, there is also no reliable way to know how much of this went unreported or underreported. See, what you guys have to understand now is the troopers. I'm not saying all troopers, but the troopers now are, I wouldn't say they're protecting them. There's a lot of state troopers out there that do their job, their due diligence, and I give them credit. But I have noticed now with some state troopers, they won't reveal the name. They won't reveal pretty much his identity, if he's illegal or legal. And that's happening a lot now. Pretty much they're covering for them, which they shouldn't be. Put it out there, but they know the public is going to have disdain for what's going on and who the individual was. So now they're hiding their name, or they won't tell the full story. And I understand there has to be an investigation of the individual, because as an American truck driver, they're going to scrutinize you because you fall under a higher standard. See, what people need to realize, the license that you get is a federal license. So by it being a federal license, even though it doesn't say that, when you get the license, you have to go through a process. In other words, you have to get a permit. And then once you get the permit, you have to go for training. And this is what's been missing in the industry for a while. The training. The training has slid off the cliff. And I'm telling you, as an experienced driver, we had CD mills. And when you hear a guy say meat in the seat or steering wheel holder, that's what they're talking about. Guys that don't have the experience, didn't go through what we call proper training. Proper training is when an individual gets in a truck with an experienced driver, not someone that has 3 months, not someone that has 6 months, because there's a lot to this. It's the most dangerous job in the world. So you have these guys that are training these guys with no experience, and do they care? No. They're getting a paycheck. And do I fault them for that? No. I don't blame them at all. They're just getting a paycheck. They're not serious about the industry. You must be serious. Like I used to tell my trainees back in the day, is this something that you want or you just hear? Because if it's something that you want, you're going to learn every aspect of the industry. If it's something that you just hear to make a buck, leave. And why I say leave? Because they're not doing the industry any favors by staying here and improperly training and putting unqualified drivers out there to drive a semi. So it goes on to say, failures and oversight by any measurable standards limited prior to independent coverage of these cases detailed in 30 Days of Why serves the T Substack. These investigations receive virtually no attention at scale from traditional media or government communication offices. The current administration has been the most active on commercial trucking enforcement and DOT oversight to recent memory. What that activity is exposing is a backlog of systematic failures that have quietly compounded for years. So basically, this has been going on for a long time. I sounded the alarm back in January when the guy got injured and burnt up in the tunnel. We've all seen that video of the guy being unalived by fire. One of the biggest problem is the training, and I'll go back to that. If you don't have an old head or somebody with at least 5 to 10 years experience in that driver's seat with a fresh body in the passenger seat, that guy that's in the passenger seat is bound for failure. Let me say that again. He is bound for failure. Out of 100%, I would say 10% might make it. The other The rest, the 90%, they may make it and they may not. They're going on a whim because the companies are trying to make money. They're all about business and they're all about money. They don't care if you go out there and wreck one of their trucks. Why? Because all they'll do is throw you out and get a fresh body. You get 2 accidents at most major carriers. After that, you're done. There is no coming back. So I say this to say, I've seen the accidents just like everybody else, but I've seen other accidents that have not been reported or underreported. They don't put them out there too much anymore because they know they'll be scrutinized. At the end of my videos, I will always give you guys a key. And a key will be anything from sliding the fifth wheel to where your tandem should be on a turn, a right turn, or anything like that. Because a lot of guys I've seen making just a simple right turn can't do it. And those keys will be at the end. But what I've noticed in the media is that the media is not covering these accidents because they don't want to be scrutinized because they want that. They want the individuals in the industry. Let me put it this way. They were screaming driver shortage back in my day, which is the 80s and the 90s. There is no driver shortage, okay? Put that in your head. There is no driver shortage. Now, they did come clean and they said there's a shortage of qualified drivers. This is true. There is a shortage of qualified driver because it starts at the training level. That's where it begins. If you put a guy out here and he has no experience, doesn't know how to parallel park, doesn't know that he's driving two vehicles, a truck and a trailer. You're driving two. Even though it's an articulate vehicle, you're driving two. You must keep your head in that window. Act like you're trying to look at yourself to see if you cute or not. But they don't know how to. They can straight line back somewhat, I've seen. They can go forward fine. They just be going too fast. Especially if you call yourself running a business. Between 68 and 70 is where you get the best fuel mileage. You may be like making a lot of money as an owner operator at those speeds, but I see 80, 90 miles per hour guys be flying. Yeah, you're on a time limit, but what's more important, your CDL and a couple of $100 more that you saved in your pocket, or going fast, having to fuel up every 5 minutes and getting a ticket? Because them DOT don't play out there. I'm going to tell you, especially back in my day, they did not play. They will pull you over for going anywhere from 8 to 10 miles over the speed limit, you know. But the truck's fuel efficiency, the best sweet spot, as we call it, is between 68 and 70 miles an hour. Have you never noticed that the faster you go, the faster everybody else go? When you're moving that fast, things come fast. I know. Back in my day, we were doing 3 digits. 3 digits means that these guys used to take the governor off. If you do that now, even back then, if they were rebels, it's a federal offense. They used to call it the monkey box. Don't mess around with the monkey box. The monkey messing with the monkey box. But guys, back in my day, we used to do 3 digits. Okay. So you're not impressing nobody by going faster. You're just more apt to being a wreck, a bad wreck. Because at those speeds, I've seen some wrecks at those speeds. They're not pretty. You're going to take a life at those speeds. I'm not saying that the trucks need to be governed because they don't. What I am saying is just know if you're going to run those speeds and you're willing to pay, either time or money, because that's your choice, either time or money, as my brother used to say. He's driven at slower speeds, and I asked him, why is he going faster again? And he used to say, my truck does 99. I said, okay. He says, I had to make a decision between time and money. If you're going to run them speeds, you need to do it safely. You need to be aware of your surroundings. Ain't nobody saying you need to slow down, which you should, but that's your choice. What you need to do, and this is your choice, like I said, but I'm giving you some advice. You need to pay attention to what you're doing at those speeds. You need to be on click mode, meaning click, everything is simultaneous. I'm going to move left because I see this truck going slow in front of me. Because you could see that truck going slow in front of you. Why would you run up in his ass? What if he slams on the brake? Because you do got some idiots that will slam on the brake with you tailgating and put you right with that name of that company on your forehead. I'm not one, but I know guys that will because they don't like that. And then riding on the side, you're just asking for trouble because when you ride on the side of another truck, now you just became a roadblock. And if that truck needs to get out of a situation, you're the one still sitting there. Either I've noticed looking at somebody else's dash, trying to see who's driving the truck. My brother used to say all the time, you can see who's driving the truck. I don't care if it's a Peterbilt Kenworth and the seat is all the way pushed back. Look in the driver's side mirror. You could tell if it's male, female, or if you're into race, you can see what race that person is. And that pretty much works because you can see them in the mirror. But keep it pushing because you sitting on the side is causing a obstruction. Obstruction meaning you don't see what's on the other side of that truck. You don't see that ramp coming up because there might be a vehicle coming down that ramp. Now that truck is stuck and he can't move, or a deer might run across, and you tailgating, and guess what he gonna do? Slam on the brake, which he shouldn't. You must plow through Bambi, as we used to be told. But you know, pretty much, that's my take on it. So now I told you guys I would give you a key at the end. The key is on tail swing. Next time it'll be on sliding the fifth wheel. Now with tail swings, I see a lot of guys out here with their trailer tandem slid all the way back. Maybe they're heavy, but in certain states there are bridge laws, especially California. So if you're out here pulling overweight, that ticket is pretty, it's pretty heavy. I think it's like $2 a pound or something like that, and it is. Depending on how heavy you are, it could depend on whether you get a misdemeanor or a felony. And it does count against your driving record. A long time ago, I got one in Bakersfield picking up some ice cream. I'm not going to name the company, but it was coming out of Maryland and drove it on through. And like a knucklehead, didn't weigh it. Always weigh your freight. Anything over 30,000 pounds, you need to weigh the freight because if not, depending on how they loaded it, you can find yourself in a world of hurt, especially after I got from Maryland all the way down to the Arizona scale, made it through there and got to California, and then guess what? Had to turn all the way back around and get the load reworked. So when it comes to tail swing, basically, if you heavy in the front on your drives, you need to slide them forward. Okay? Tail swing. When it comes to tail swing, we call it off tracking or dog tracking. Basically, wherever your trailer tires are and your drive tires are, wherever you put those drive tires, your trailer will follow that. Now, you also have to understand that there's a trailer drop. This is why I say you drive two vehicles. Even though it's articulate, you drive two vehicles. The way I do it is I basically, when I get to a point where I know it's too tight and I can judge it's too tight, yeah, I'll make sure there's no traffic on my left and swing out because I know that trailer is going to follow my drive. So wherever I plant them drives, that trailer is going to follow. If I just stay in a single line in that lane and try to make the turn and there's an island in the middle, chances are I'm going to take out a light or I'm going to take out a pole. And the reason that is because you have what we call trailer drop. Wherever you plant the, say I plant my drives right as I turn, that trailer is going to drop and it's going to drop quick. I always clear my tandems. This is why I say you're driving two vehicles. This is why you don't want the tandems in the back because you have no tail swing. Tail swing is the rear end of the trailer where the tandems are slid up enough to where, and you must watch your tail swing. But the rear end of the trailer is going to swing out. So you have to watch it. That's why you have to stay in those mirrors. In other words, like I said in the beginning, stay in the mirrors, look at yourself. If you think you cute, look in there. Just think, know you cute. Okay? But when it comes to tail swing, the further back you have those tandems, the more you're going to get less tail swing. Tail swing helps you to make that curve without hitting that curve. If you make the turn and you stay in that right mirror and you look at where your tandems are, and once you know they halfway clear on that curve and you're already into the turn, you should not hit anything because you've already pulled half the trailer forward to go around whatever the obstacle is in front of you or to the right of you. If you pull too short, the trailer's going to drop, and it's going to drop quick. And this is why you see a lot of wrecks inside the truck stop or somebody hitting somebody on the end because they didn't clear their trailer. You must clear that trailer. If you don't clear that trailer, you're going to hit something. That's why I said you're driving two vehicles. You must clear the trailer. If you clear the trailer, most of the time back in the day, guys would tell you by flashing their lights to say, hey, trailer's clear. You can come on over. Not 2 feet from the guy's bumper. You want to leave enough of a length between you and that other truck. So if something should occur as you're passing behind him, you're far enough up ahead to where you can move back over. I see people doing that all the time. Moving over quick. Why would you move over quick to get out of traffic's way? You need to clear your trailer. Yes, you might have a numbskull that's going to come and pull up around you because you was taking too much time in that left lane. And we see it. And the more time you take up in that left lane, the more impatient people get. What you need to do is go ahead, pull on up till you at least get 2-3 car lengths or more where you know you ain't going to hit that guy in the right lane, and then move back over. Stop being in a rush. This is not a rush job. You're supposed to be enjoying this job. But like I said, tail swings. When it comes to tail swings, you must have those tandems slid up to where your weight is distributed evenly, to where you have 34 on the drives, 34 on the tandems. Now you can have 34.5 on your drives if you're carrying an APU. Most trucks on the side will have a little sticker somewhere that says exception 550 pounds for APU. Most DOT want to see that 550 or that 300 over on your drives, not on your tandems or not on your steers. Why? Because your APU is where the drives are. Sometimes they let you slide. A lot of times they won't. Do it right. If you out here in this business, you must do it right because everybody else, I'm not going to say is dependent on you, but they feel like you're a danger, and which you are. And I'm talking to everybody that might be newer than me. They feel like you're a danger, so they have to avoid you. They're going to do that anyway. You know, it's called, what's it called? Defense and offense. Most of the guys are on offense because they don't know you. They don't know your capabilities. And if you're new and you're out here and you just having fun, you're going to tear something up. And that is a deadly machine. When I say deadly, look up what 80,000 pounds full weight or 79,000 pounds is in tonnage. You cannot stop on an eye. You forget that. So that's why you've seen some videos out here, and I've been in that situation too, where the guy was driving the long nose and he almost hit the other guys in the tail end. I've been in that situation, traveling too close, thinking we going around traffic that when I was on op. And what they did was the guy, he came around the guy because they were chasing somebody, and the guy ended up taking the guy in front of me, which thank God. He took the guy right side axle out with the tire and all that and took off running. The police chased him. That's another story. But I had to pretty much stand up on the brake to get the truck stopped. And this was in a 10 speed. And that's another thing. I've driven 10 speeds, 9 speeds, 18 speeds, 13 speeds. So I'm not a rookie. I am a rookie. And I always remember when somebody call you a rookie, don't take it offensively. Just know that you're learning and you're going to make mistakes. Guys before me that came before me used to tell me that all the time. And I'm always remind y'all towards the end of my videos, always read everything. And that's what an old timer told me back in the day when they were training me. Because I used to sit in that passenger seat. I didn't come out the gate like y'all doing. I had to start somewhere. Always read everything, even if it don't apply to you. Because what did he say? It might apply one day. So you read everything. That keeps your head moving on a swivel. So I'm done with this video. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe. And you guys keep the rubber side down, shiny side up. And for you old heads, y'all know it's the truth. I'll holler at y'all. Take care.